Perek Gimel, Mishnah Dalet. Persu sodin shel butz beinoi levein ha'om. They spread a sheet of linen between him and the people. We're now referring to the first of the 5 tevilos that the Kohen Gadol does on Yom Kippur. And as we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, this first tevila doesn't take place in the Azorah like the other 4, but rather it takes place on the top of the wall. There was a special mikveh in the Shar HaMayim, which was quite near to the Lishkas Palhedrin, where he was staying in the week leading up to Yom Kippur. And this mikveh was actually not in the Azorah itself. And this is what we discussed in the previous Mishnah. But they would set up a sheet between him and the people, just for reasons of tznius, of modesty, that he should get undressed in private for this first tevilah. So says the Mishnah. One more point. It says shel butz. The sodin shel butz is specifically a linen sheet. And the Bartanura quotes, it's the Gemara. The Gemara in Yomא says that the reason why they would specifically choose a material of linen was to remind the Kohen Gadol that for much of the avodah on Yom Kippur, he would not be wearing his regular big day zahov, which was the normal attire of the Kohen Gadol, the special 8 begodim that the Kohen Gadol would normally wear. But for much of the avodah on Yom Kippurim, he'd be wearing the big day lavon, which was primarily made of butz of linen. So therefore, they chose this sodin shel butz, this linen sheet, as a sort of a mechitza, just to remind him of that. Continues the Mishnah. Poshat Yorad v'tova. He would then get undressed. Yorad v'tova. He would descend and go into the mikveh. Allah. He would emerge from the mikveh v'nistapeg, and he would dry himself. Now the Mishnah Lemelech, which is on the Rambam in Hilchas Avodas Yom Kippurim, Perek Beis, Mishnah Beis, wonders what is the nature of this nistapeg, of this sipug, of this drying himself. It would seem obvious that a kohen, or anyone who would go to the mikveh and would emerge would need to dry himself. So he wonders whether or not there's any halachic obligation of this nistapeg. It could be that the Mishnah just relates what was actually going on, what the Kohen Gadol would do, without there necessarily being a halachic obligation of drying himself. But the Mishnah Melech suggests that perhaps when the Kohen Gadol would emerge and go into the mikveh, he might come out with some sort of chatzitza on his body. Either some dirt or some material from the water would adhere to his body, and that would be a chatzitza between his flesh and the big day kuhuna. And there's not allowed to be a chatzitza, any sort of barrier, any intervening substance between his own flesh and the big day kuhuna. Therefore, it could be, says the Mishnah Melech, that Olav and Istapeg means that when he emerges from the mikveh, he has to dry himself, which means to dry himself plus to check that there's no chatzitza, there's no substance on his body, which would be a chatzitza, which would invalidate the avodah. There mustn't be any chatzitza between his flesh and the big day kuhuna. Okay. So continues the Mishnah. Olav and Istapek, he would emerge from the mikveh and dry himself. Heviu le big day zahav, and they would bring him his big day zahav, the gold begodim that he would normally wear. So he came along in his big day chol, in regular clothes, whatever he happened to be wearing, and then he would go to the mikveh for the first time, and then he would wear his big day zahav. Now, the Kohen Gadol would wear 8 begodim, as opposed to the regular Kohen who would wear 4 begodim. The Kohen Gadol wears 8 begodim. They are the ketones, the michnosayim, mitznefes, that's the hat, for avnet and his belt, the me'il, which is that long sort of tunic, v'choshen, the breastplate, v'ephod, the sort of apron, the tzitz, and the tzitz. Now, of these 8 begodim, 4 of them are made up partly or entirely of gold, and they are the choshen, which is the breastplate, the ephod, the me'il, because of the little bells at the bottom of the me'il, and lastly the tzitz, which was kulei zahov. So they were called the big day zahov because 4 out of the 8 were either partly or entirely made of gold. So he would wear now the big day zahov. He would wear now the big day zahov. V'lovash, and he would dress himself in these clothes. The kiddush yodov v'raglav, and then he would do the first of the 10 kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, washing his hands and his feet, as we've described in the previous Mishnah. We said that every time he would put on new clothes, in honor of those clothes, he would do kiddush yadayim v'raglayim, and before he would take off one of these sets of clothes, he would also do Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. So this is the first time he's putting on these big day kahuna, and therefore, in honor, once these are on, he would do the first of the 10 Kiddush Yadayim V'Raglayim. Hevi'u lo es hatomit. They would then bring him the carbon tomit, the morning daily sacrifice. Krotzai, he would then make an incision. Now, the lashon of krotzai, to make an incision, is notable because the Gemara and the Mefarshim explain that he doesn't actually finish off and do the whole shechita. Rather, he would do roiv tzimonim. Roiv of shnei tzimonim. He's got to cut the majority of the windpipe and the food pipe, the kona and veshet, and he would only cut the majority of those. Now, the reason why he didn't finish it off is because the Kohen Gadol is in a bit of a hurry, because he has to do the kabbalas hadam, which means he's got to catch the blood of this carbon tomit. So in order to then to be available and ready to catch the dam, he only does the majority of the shechita, i.e. of the shnei simonim, and then another Kohen finishes it off, so he can be ready, the Kohen Gadol can be there for the kabbalas hadam, which has to be done by him. So that's what the Mishnah says. Kibbeles hadam, he catches the blood, v'z uzraka, and he throws it onto the mizbeach. He does the zrikas hadam. Nichnas, continues the Mishnah. Nichnas lahaktir k'toires shel shachar. Nichnas, he enters the Beis Hamikdash, the Kodesh, to burn the k'toires shel shachar. Now that does not refer to the special k'toires of Yom Kippurim, but rather the k'toires of the daily k'torais that would be offered up every single day, every single morning, and every afternoon. So this would be the morning k'torais, and he would do that on the Mizbeach HaZohov in the Kodesh, and Ulahetiv Saneris, and he would also go to the menorah, which was of course in the Kodesh as well, and he would do the Hatovas Haneros, which we've discussed previously. There's a machlokas exactly what that means, whether it means cleaning out the menorah and then refilling it with oil, or it means the lighting of the menorah, or a combination of these jobs. He would then go along to the kevesh, to the ramp, which leads up to the Mizbeach. So he would go out of the Kodesh, go back into the Ezras Kohanim to go to where the Mizbeach is, and by then the parts of the carbon would have been placed on the lower half of the ramp of the kevesh going up to the Mizbeach, and he would take these parts and throw them onto the fire on top of the Mizbeach. The Chavitin is a reference to the special carbon of the Kohen Gadol, which half of it he would do in the morning and half in the afternoon. Ves Hayayin refers to the Nisuch Hayayin, where there were special bowls on the corner of one of the corners of the Mizbeach, where he would throw the wine, or he would pour the wine into one of those basins. That is the end of Mishnah Dalet.